welcome to an episode of Jacob's House of Rock. My name's Jacob, and today we're doing a full review of this brand new Epiphone Special P90 edition guitar. Now, this is one of their brand new guitars from their most recent line of Epiphone guitars. You can already kind of tell by the really cool new headstock. But these guitars are emulating what Gibson is putting out, hence they're in a line called the Inspired by Gibson range. And they're putting out some really cool classic guitars, and I happened to pick up this Epiphone Special P90 edition in Sparkling Burgandy. So yeah, before we do anything else in this video, let's just cut to some specs about this guitar and I'll tell you all about it. This guitar is part of the new Inspired by Gibson range of guitars from Epiphone. Specifically, this one was inspired by a 1960s Gibson SG Special equipped with P90 single coil pickups. The pickups used in this guitar are Epiphone P90 Pro pickups. The body and neck of this guitar is made of mahogany, just like a real Gibson. However, judging by the widespread use of veneers and opaque colors throughout this and the rest of the Inspired by Gibson line from Epiphone, I'd say they more than likely are using smaller chunks of mahogany that have been then laminated together in order to form these bodies and necks. Which, honestly, I don't think affects the playability in any negative way. It's just something to bear in mind as why this guitar might happen to be a bit cheaper. The guitar comes with a rolled 60s slim taper set neck with a bound 12-inch radius fretboard made of Indian laurel wood, fitted with 22 medium jumbo frets, dot inlays, and a Graphtec Newbone nut. The neck is capped off with a Kalamazoo style headstock as opposed to the traditional Epiphone headstock, which far more resembles a classic Gibson headstock, which is a really cool change for this guitar as it is based on classic Gibson guitars. And the headstock is fitted with 6 Epiphone Deluxe Clouson style tuners. The hardware is finished off with a vintage style lightning bolt wraparound combo bridge, and some notable points about the electronics are that they use genuine CTS potentiometers and era-correct wiring. This particular guitar is available in 2 different colors. The one I got in Sparkling Burgandy, however it's also available in Faded Felon Blue. I've had this guitar now for a few weeks, and it's given me some time to play it quite a bit and get a real good sense of this guitar and a feel for it, and I think I'm ready to do a full review for you guys, and especially because I want to do some better sound demos than the little crappy thing that I did in the unboxing video for this thing. Before we get into that, though, I do want to talk about this guitar and kind of my feelings towards it and stuff like that. So I'll yammer on for a little bit, but don't worry, we will get to that sound demo. Firstly, the reason I got this guitar is because I'm a huge Black Sabbath fan. I think that comes as no surprise to anyone who has seen the content on my channel. Tony Iommi of Black Sabbath, he is famous for inventing heavy metal music on a Gibson SG Special, just like this one back in the day. Of course, it had a slightly different headstock and logo, and eventually it was quite heavily modified by jeez, can't say that word, John Birch. I was actually tempted to replace these pickups by some John Birch pickups, which I have other videos on. And I might still do that, I might not. But the interesting thing is actually, these pickups are actually pretty good, so I don't know. I don't know what to do anymore, because that was my original plan. We'll see, though. But before we get into that, let's talk about my overall impression of this guitar. Firstly, the playability. This guitar's playability is phenomenal. It is fantastic. I have literally no issues with this thing. It came with no fret buzz. No fret buzz on it. The frets are beautifully leveled. The guitar arrived set up perfectly. It tunes really well. And I'm so happy about that, because the single most important thing when you are buying a new guitar is to make sure that it has really well leveled frets and that you can set it up really well. Because even the most high-end, amazing, expensive guitar is going to be horrible to play if it has issues with the frets. And if it's not set up well. So fortunately, this one came up really well set up. I have seen some other people do unboxings and have some minor issues. I've also seen other people also have flawless ones. So I'm guessing these ones can be a little bit hit and miss, but, you know, towards the more hit end of the spectrum compared to some other lines of guitars. But generally, I would advise, if you can, try and play these things in the store before you buy them. However, I did buy mine online and I got lucky, so I'm really happy about that. I really love the feeling of this neck. So this is that 60s slim taper neck with the rolled neck, which, yeah, it's really good. I love the feeling of this neck because it is kind of slim, but it's not too slim. And I think what the rolled thing means is that it is slightly thicker towards the bass string end of the fretboard, while the more lighter gauge strings have a thinner side of the fretboard, so it feels really natural in your hands and really comfortable. You feel like your thumb has a good amount of support because it's slightly thicker down this end, but then you can easily get your fingers around the thinner end here to reach those lighter strings. It is really comfy. It's one of the comfiest guitars I have in my collection, so I really love that about this thing. We got medium jumbo frets. Like I said, no issues with them. They play flawlessly and are set up really well. So I love that about this thing. One thing that makes this guitar really quite special is this uses one of these sort of wraparound bridges. Now, this is a very sort of vintage type of bridge. You can't adjust the intonation really well like a Tune-o-matic or anything like that. So I was concerned about this thing. I actually bought a new bridge, which is kind of also a wraparound bridge, but it actually has little adjustable saddles on it, because I was thinking I probably would replace this thing. However, I was actually pleasantly surprised by this. It's intonated really well, and I've had no tuning issues with this, despite this type of bridge being used. So that was really awesome. I'm happy about that. Very happy indeed. We have a Graphtec New Bone, however you pronounce that nut. It's, yeah, just a fancy plastic nut, basically using that sort of fancy self-lubricating plastic, which works really well, had no tuning issues. A lot of these sort of guitars with headstocks like this tend to have issues with the G string getting nut bound here. However, I haven't had any of those issues as of yet. Got these Epiphone Cloisonne style tuners, so that, again, that classic vintage look. And I think this is the first line of guitars where we actually have the tuners saying Epiphone Deluxe, because usually these would say Gibson Deluxe or just be some generic brand, so that's pretty cool. And we do have that brand new Kalamazoo style headstock, which I love. I love this new headstock. It is not my favorite headstock ever made, but I like it a lot more than the previous Epiphone headstocks, which I'm actually not as big a hater of the classic Epiphone headstock as some other people out there. I'll actually bring in one just to compare with you guys. Got these two headstocks here. However, I do love the look of this sort of open book top to this headstock up here. The more Gibson-esque top up on the headstock. It looks better. This one just looks like somebody got a Gibson headstock and clipped it. Like they clipped the horns on either end and kind of cut away its awesomeness. I don't know. I'm really happy though that this does have the Epiphone logo on it, because I'm not one of those people who needs to have the Gibson logo on a guitar, like, just because. I think Epiphone make great guitars and they deserve to have their headstock out. and the people who play their guitars to be really proud of that. So that is a good thing. That's why I love it in combination with this headstock. I think it's a really good direction for Epiphone to be taking. And just this line of guitars in general have been great for Epiphone, I think. They're putting out some really cool stuff that'll a lot of people out there really want. So these sort of SG Special guitars with P90s are actually really hard to come by. Even the Gibson official ones, they're really hard to get, and they tend to go for a lot more money than even your basic SG, which is weird to me, because originally these SG Specials, these were the budget version. Like back in the 60s, they made these as the cheaper version, and nowadays, if you look at the official Gibson ones, they're like twice the cost of a freaking normal Gibson SG with humbuckers. It's really odd, but I guess it just goes to show that these guitars are kind of sought after. And I can see why, because this is a really great guitar to play. I love it. Got that classic SG contoured body, and we have the Sparkling Burgandy finish. So initially I was a little on the fence about getting this color guitar, because these come in the two different colors. We have that faded something blue, which is also like this sort of silvery metallic light blue color, and this Sparkling Burgandy for this model of guitar. We also had a couple of other SGs of P90s in them with like a worn finish, which is basically like a really thin, not glossy, like a matte coat of lacquer over just the raw wood, and it was, you know, painted. But I didn't want those guitars for a couple of reasons. One is it had a different bridge, and I wanted the bridge to be as close as possible to the genuine Gibsons. So I got this one to have it, you know, as close as possible to that, because these wraparound bridges actually have different screw holes and stuff to mount them, and it wouldn't be as simple as just removing this and putting in an actual tunematic bridge. It would be a bit more complicated if that's what you want to do, and vice versa. So I wanted the hardware to be as close as it could to the original Tony Iommi Monkey SG, basically. And that's also why I got the red color. And initially I was a little sad that we didn't get a transparent lacquer over wood grain. However, I've grown really attached to this Sparkling Burgandy color. It is a really sort of really fancy metallic red. It's really deep and glorious, and it looks just kind of really like snazzy and royal and like fancy. I don't know if it'll come out on camera, but in person it looks really nice. I found when I'm trying to take photos of this guitar is very mirrory. It's too shiny to really capture the depth of the color that you get in person, but in person it looks really great. So I'm actually kind of happy about that, especially seeing some of the kind of hit and miss things that Epiphone have been doing with their guitars. There are other SGs that do have a clear finish, because they've been putting veneers on these guitars, but they've been putting them really weirdly. That's like the contoured edges don't have the veneers, and then the tops, the flat tops of the SGs have the veneers, and they just kind of look really weird, and it's not, I don't know, it doesn't look that great, in my opinion. It looks okay, but I just prefer a solid color, I guess. But I do have a lot of red guitars, so that's the only downside. Like, part of me still wishes I got that blue one, because that one looks so nice as well. But that's neither here nor there. If you guys prefer one color over the other, go for that. But I just couldn't not go for the red, just because, again, I'm getting this for the spirit of the Black Sabbath guitar. So I just had to. Hardware-wise, like I said, works pretty well. I've had no issues with the tuners as of yet. Like, I haven't had to tune it all that much, really. It's been keeping in tune really well, which is a great sign, though. I don't know if I will replace these or not, because initially I did want to replace these with locking tuners, because I love locking tuners, because I can't be bothered fiddling around with looping strings, and they keep the tuning a little bit more stable as well, because there's less of that string to like loosen and tighten on the little pegs there. We do have these sort of white plastic machine head, what would you call these, nubs or whatever. They look pretty good. They look kind of little, very small, especially with this slightly larger, very paddle-like headstock. So aesthetically, I think these would look better if they were a little bigger. Again, very, very, very minor nitpick. We also have the serial number of this guitar on the back of the headstock, just like you would with a Gibson. It's indented into the wood there, you can feel it. We could probably look up this serial number and see exactly where and when it was made. That would be cool. That's something I probably will do eventually. We also have a sticker on it that says handcrafted in China and in inspection QC. So I'm guessing it was quality control passed, which is very, very good. Let's talk about the electronics in this thing. In my unboxing video, I took off this little back panel here because I wanted to take a good look at these electronics, because on the Epiphone website, they promise that this thing has CTS pots and era accurate wiring, whatever it's called, and braided cables, like metal braided cables for the pickups and all that jazz. And yeah, it checks out. I open this up, genuine CTS pots. Some of you guys won't even know or care about what the deal with CTS pots is. Others of you will know that they're basically just fairly expensive potentiometers, which are basically the inner part that corresponds with these knobs. And they're just, you know, they're fairly good quality potentiometers, so that is really good. I've had no issues with the hardware. It's all working really nicely. Let's see. I think this jack's a little bit loose now, but it's pretty easy to fix. Happens on pretty much every guitar. I actually haven't noticed it till just fiddling with it now. Got these basic strap lock things here without the locking bit. These are just strap holders. One there, one there. The original Tony Iommi one, the Monkey SG, he actually moved that one and put it up on this top horn here to kind of help it balance better, which is something I might think of if I do modify this thing, because I was thinking of swapping these pickups out with actual John Birch pickups like I brought up. However, I don't know. Turns out these pickups are actually pretty sweet. They sound really good. They do get you that Black Sabbath sound, and they're just really fun to play through. They're called like Epiphone Pro P90 pickups or something like that. I'm really curious whether these are Alnico or ceramic pickups. You'd think if they were Alnico pickups that they would actually advertise that on their website, because most guitarists make a big deal of pickups being Alnico pickups, so like you'd think Epiphone would pick up on that, no pun intended. But I don't know. I don't really feel like tearing these apart to find out, to be honest, because all I know is these actually sound and play really good. They have great feel, and this guitar plays really well through them. I've actually been playing this thing pretty much continuously in C# standard, because that's the tuning you do when you want to play that Black Sabbath sound, because you have to tune down to play some of them riffs. But yeah, you'll hear all that in the demo in a second. So before we get to that, what else should I say about this thing? Nothing much. Let's cut to the sound demo. So I'll do some stuff in standard tuning, and then I'll in the C# standard tuning as well, and do some clean stuff, some heavy stuff, some moderate stuff. I'll just try and mix it up for you guys. Yeah. I hope you guys enjoy that little sound demo there. So the amps I was using, just in case you're curious, is this Laney GH100L 100 watt amp head, just playing through this Marshall 4x12 cab down here with God knows what speakers in there. And this other amp that I don't know if you guys can see, it's just off screen to the side over here. Let's me just kind of do that. This one here, it's my LC50, also Laney tube amp, little combo amp here, but I have it running through some greenbacks in a 2x12 cabinet down here. I was recording all of this using an SM57 just right up to the speaker, and that's running through my interface into my Reaper program, just recording sound there. So, of course, you're gonna get much better sound than you did in my unboxing video. So yeah, that's pretty much gonna be it for this review. I really love this guitar. It has become one of my favorite guitars. It feels nice to play. It feels nice. It looks really sexy. I love the look of this thing. And like I said, initially I bought this thing with the intention to modify it somewhat, to get it to basically be my copy of the Tony Iommi Monkey guitar. If you've seen, Gibson have put out a copy of the Monkey guitar, which, Jesus man, that was expensive. So I would have my own version of that for a fraction of the price if I actually go through with those modifications. However, as it stands, I'm tempted to leave this thing stock. At least for the time being, at least until the strings really wear out and then I need to take them off, and then I can be like, well, I have the strings off, maybe I could think about, like, changing the bridge, seeing what that's like. Maybe I could change the pickups and put in a 0 fret and all that sort of stuff, which part of me still wants to do, but the other part's just, like, afraid because the guitar's already so good. I don't know. Either way, this guitar is one of my more expensive guitars, actually. It's expensive because I bought it new. So, as much as, like, I'm saying it's this super great guitar, it was a bit pricey, at least for me. I tend not to spend as much money on guitars as some people, hence why I don't have any official Gibson guitars. I only have one official Fender bass. That was like one of my first basses, so I bought that before I realized that you can get cheap instruments that are just as good as the name brand ones. That's kind of a final message that I wanted to put out to you guys. You don't have to pay like over $1,000 for a really decent guitar. This one still, you know, pretty pricey new, especially in Australian dollars. However, still a lot cheaper than a Gibson, and it's really good. So I give this guitar a strong recommend. If you're on the fence about some of these new guitars, I'd say go for it. Especially if they got P90 pickups. P90 pickups are really great pickups. And that's something I should have talked about early in this review. Most people are more or less not as familiar with P90 pickups as single coils or humbuckers for whatever reason. I'm not sure. Might be something to do with these pickups being known for being a little bit more hummy. They tend to pick up some more of the room electricity sound and radio waves and whatnot, just because they are single coil pickups. Which is a shame because tonally, they are really good pickups. They have some of that chime and high ends that you would get would get from a single coil, because they are single coil pickups. However, they drive the amp a lot harder and they're a lot thicker sounding at the same time. So you get this kind of interesting dynamic where they're kind of between a single coil and a humbucker, and they just sound really vicious, and they're really good for some of that more sort of fuzzy, heavy sounds. And that's really surprising coming from a single coil pickup. But yeah, they're basically just really fat single coils. And I love them, and I wish more guitars had them. I'm actually really tempted to pick up another one of these Epiphone new guitars, particularly the Les Paul Studio in TV yellow. I don't know, for whatever reason, that one just caught my eye. I kind of like the look of that one. But if it's anywhere near as good as this one, it's probably going to be a great guitar. That is it for my review of the Epiphone Special P90 Edition guitar. I'm loving this thing. I also love the fact that this is an actual proper Epiphone Special, because in the olden days, like a couple of years ago, what an Epiphone Special meant was just a really cheaply made Epiphone with like a bolt-on neck and also humbuckers. So they weren't even doing the like P90 ones. I think they did in limited runs at some point. I'm not really an expert. I've seen some older Epiphones with P90s, but predominantly if you Google Epiphone Special back in the day, you just get like a cheaply made Epiphone guitar with a bolt-on neck. So this is so much better than that. Got a proper set neck, proper P90 pickups, and it's all great and all good. So yeah, I highly recommend this thing to you guys, and I hope to see you guys in my next video. But I'm gonna leave it at that. So peace out, people. Keep on rocking. See ya.